From a potentially significant decline in global food security to a decrease in biodiversity, making crops more susceptible to pests and diseases, here's why farmers will not be able to survive without bees. These little buzzing creatures are essential for our ecosystems, providing us with high-quality food like honey, royal jelly, and pollen, as well as other sweet products like beeswax, propolis, and honeybee venom. But it's not just about the goodies they give us. Bees are also super important to our ecosystem. The western honeybee is the most widely managed pollinator worldwide, with over 80 million hives producing an insane 1.6 million gallons of honey annually. And did you know that a third of the world's food production actually depends on bees? These busy bees are responsible for pollinating around 35% of crop production, including 87 of the world's most important food crops. Not to mention all the plant-derived medicines we use. In fact, insects or other animals must pollinate 2/3 of food plants that feed the world to produce healthy fruits and seeds for people to eat. That means that bees are not only essential for quantity, but also for variety and quality in our food supply. But that's not all. Bees are also crucial for some of our favorite fruits, like almonds, apples, blueberries, cherries, and strawberries. Without these buzzing creatures, we wouldn't have any of these delicious treats. These crops require cross-pollination to produce fruit, which is where bees come in. But it's not just about the fruit. Bees also play a major role in maintaining the biodiversity of ecosystems by pollinating wild plants and flowers. But things haven't been looking good for our buzzing friends lately. A new study based in the US has found that a lack of bees in agricultural areas is seriously limiting the supply of some food crops. This is no joke, folks. Declines in pollinators could have huge consequences for global food security. Wild bees, like bumblebees, are struggling due to a loss of flowering habitat, toxic pesticides, and the climate crisis. Even managed honeybees, who are tended to by beekeepers, are being hit with diseases. This means 75% of humanity's food crops that depend on pollinators could be in serious trouble if we don't take action to save our bees. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but our bee friends and other pollinators like butterflies, bats, and hummingbirds are in danger, all thanks to us humans and our actions. The global bee population has been taking a nosedive in recent decades due to habitat loss, super intense farming practices, wacky weather patterns, and the excessive use of agrochemicals like pesticides. It's a total bummer if I'm being real with you, because this puts all sorts of plants, crucial to human survival, at risk. But wait, there's more. Air pollution is another thing that's messing with bees. According to preliminary studies, air pollution actually interferes with scent molecules that are generated by plants, which bees need to locate food. This messes up the bees' ability to forage efficiently, making them slower and less efficient at pollinating. Can you believe that? While the majority of pollinators are wild, including over 20,000 types of bees, the mass breeding and transport of pollinators can also pose risks for transmitting diseases and parasites. But better regulation of the trade can help minimize the risk of unintended harm. So let's take care of our bees, people. Also, I've got some news that might make you want to put down your honey jar for a sec. New research is confirming our fears about the declining bee population. According to a study conducted in 13 states across the US, 5 out of 7 crops are struggling to grow because of lack of bees. Apples, blueberries, and cherries are some of them. Rachel Winfrey, an expert on pollination, said that the crops that got more bees got significantly more crop production. So yeah, these fuzzy insects are pretty important for our food supply. Interestingly, wild native bees are contributing a lot to pollination despite the lack of vegetation in the farmed areas. They're actually more effective pollinators than honeybees. But unfortunately, many species are on the decline. The rusty-patched bumblebee, for example. It was even added to the US endangered species list in 2017. And honeybees are still propping up a lot of American agriculture. They're trucked around the country in hives to meet the growing need for crop pollination. Now, there's some good news too. Almonds, one of the 2 crops not affected by the lack of bees, they're mostly grown in California, where a lot of beehives are trucked to each year for a massive almond pollination event. So don't panic too much just yet. But it's definitely high time we start taking the bee population seriously, especially the farmers. We all know that they're working super hard to feed the world's population. But they're doing it by flattening wildflower meadows, spraying tons of insecticide, and planting fields of just one crop. And this is taking a huge toll on the bee population. Industrial farming practices, like tilling and spraying pesticides, are major buzzkills for the bees. When we plow up their nesting sites and saturate the soil with chemicals, we're essentially evicting them from their homes. Plus, growing just one kind of crop, aka monoculture, limits the diversity of forage for bees, making it harder for them to find food throughout the year. Also, the Food and Agriculture Organization at the UN claims that the amount of crop production that depends on pollinators has increased by a whopping 300% over the last 50 years. If we can't keep up with the demand, certain fruits and veggies could become scarce and more expensive, leading to less nutritious diets. But don't worry, staples like rice, wheat, and corn are still cool because they're pollinated by the wind. But still, Rachel Winfrey, a Rutgers University ecologist and pollination specialist, is warning us about the situation. She believes that wild bee populations are dropping drastically, and that colonies of honeybees are weaker right now than they ever were. With the agriculture industry getting more intensive and fewer bees around, pollination could become limited. And even if honeybees were healthy, it's a big risk to rely on just one bee species. Plus, parasites are bound to target the one species we have in these monocultural crop fields. The scientists behind the study are recommending that farmers get with the program and start understanding how much pollination is needed to boost their crop yields. They also need to reevaluate how much pesticide and fertilizer they're using on the fields, because according to Winfrey, the situation we're in could lead to some serious food security issues. And this isn't something that's going to happen 10 or 20 years down the line. It's happening right now. So, what's the solution? We need to think about how we can regenerate those bee populations. And how can we do that while keeping farmers economically secure and also providing food for everyone? By creating and protecting habitats and ecological biodiversity, we can make sure that all kinds of bees have a place to thrive. This approach looks at the bigger picture, considering the long-term health of the whole ecosystem. It's all about finding a balance between yield and food security, and the health of natural systems like our buzzing bee friends. If we want to keep churning out those fruits and veggies, we really have to start thinking about our homies, the bees. Current farming practices are killing off these important pollinators, which could lead to major food shortages in the future. So, what can we do about it? Well, it turns out that regenerative farming practices are the way to go. Regenerative farming focuses on building ecosystems and protecting natural habitats. This not only benefits the bees, but also supports food chain sustainability. By increasing biodiversity and creating natural habitats like cover crops and hedgerows, we can provide homes and forage for all kinds of biological life, including wild bees. The bottom line is that regenerative farming practices can help restore balance and ensure future food production. So let's get on board with this conservation agriculture combo and save the bees one hive at a time. That'll be all for today on how farmers can't survive without bees.